Lucid Dreams by Rebecca Weiberg. I walked into my room and looked at the bed. Between the graveyard shifts and my classes, I had barely slept since the breakup. And I was starting to feel some serious contempt for the word breakup. The word seemed so casual. I was betrayed by my best friend, the only person who knew me better than anyone else in the world. I had lost my soulmate. I didn't really know who I was without him. I could no longer envision my future. Whenever I thought about my future, there was a black hole, so empty that just thinking about it made me want to give up on life entirely. That was what he had done. He had taken from me my will to live, and yet, that's what it was, a breakup. I got myself ready for bed and climbed in. I glanced over at the laptop that sat on my nightstand so that I could stream my shows while in bed. But I was too tired to watch anything tonight. So I shut the laptop and pulled the covers up. I was too exhausted to cry. I fell asleep almost immediately. I dreamt about that weekend, our last weekend together, one of the best times of my life. We were so happy and so in love. We knew that our physical time together wouldn't last since we both had to fly back to school the next day. Two separate schools, but the long-distance part of the relationship was almost over, and then we could really be together. I dreamt about the last conversation we had, the one where he told me that we needed to end things. He had texted me while I was on my flight back. He had said that he wanted to talk to me about something important. I didn't think much of it. We were so close that most of the time we knew what the other was thinking before the words were spoken. After spending the weekend together, I was flying home with a renewed hope in our relationship. Knowing that we had spent every moment over the last few days in pure bliss meant that if just made it through the next year and a half, we could spend all of our days just like that, forever. When I answered the Skype call, I could tell that something was wrong. I could from the way he wouldn't look directly at me that he had something to say that wasn't good. Why? I asked, too dumbfounded to even believe that this was really happening to me, to us. Because when we are together, we are too happy? That being apart had become too painful. And that was it. We agreed that it would be better if we didn't talk at all. Being friends wasn't an option for us, we both knew. I felt my phone vibrate. I checked the messages and saw that he had texted me. But we had agreed not to talk? I read the message that asked me if we could talk on the phone. So I called him and we talked for hours. It was just like old times. Of course he was sorry about what he said. Of course he didn't mean it. Of course he couldn't handle the thought of us not being together. And then I woke up. I blinked a couple of times. I instinctively pulled my phone out from under my pillow. I hit the phone icon and searched his name. Right before I pressed the call button, I realized that it hadn't been real. I opened the messages up on my phone and checked under his name. Nothing new. It had been a dream. I had had lucid dreams for most of my life. At some point during the dream, I would think I was awake. Everything felt real, but I could also control the outcome of the dream to be whatever I wanted. I was mortified by what I had done, by what my mind had almost made me do. I almost called him. I would have acted like nothing had ever happened. He would have thought I was crazy. I jumped out of bed and stalked to the bathroom. I was so upset with myself that the anxiety hadn't hit me quite yet. I decided to get some food in my stomach before the nausea came back. I climbed back into bed with a full stomach, turned my laptop on, and put on my favorite show. I spent the day in bed, escaping from reality as best I could and living vicariously through the characters on my screen. As night approached, I started thinking about the dream from this morning. Would it happen again? I had been so exhausted last night. Maybe that was what had led to the lucid dreaming. Or maybe it was just my mind trying to find a way to help pull me out of the deep depression that I had fallen into, a little solace in my sleep to make being awake a little less painful. It hadn't worked. In fact, I was terrified of falling asleep again, waking up thinking that everything had gone back to normal. Just to relive the pain of losing him was too much to bear, so I would stay awake. I'd fight falling asleep as long as I could. I've never been able to sleep while my shows were on. When I stayed in a hotel room with my mom, I'd always have to wait for her to fall asleep. Then I'd shut off the television, and only then could I fall asleep myself. If I kept the laptop on with my show streaming, I should be able to stay awake. But of course, I didn't. I managed to stay up for hours. I had to click the button to keep the streaming service from asking me if I was still watching. But eventually, I drifted off. I had the dream again. The same dream, only this time, it changed partway through. We were talking on the phone, but the words he was saying made no sense to me. However, they seemed oddly familiar. It dawned on me after a few minutes. The words weren't his, they belonged to a character from my show. In that instant, I realized that I was still dreaming. When I woke, there was no false hope waiting to greet me because I had realized that the dream wasn't reality. When the noise from the show penetrated my subconscious, it prevented me from taking control of it. I woke up feeling more refreshed and relieved. I did the same thing the next night and was greeted in my dreams by the characters in my show. Every time my dreams started to feel real, I could be pulled out by the familiarity of the words coming from my nightstand. Over time, the dreams no longer haunted me, but the sound of a familiar show had become my own personal lullaby. 7 years later, I lay in bed with my husband dozing off beside me. My iPad sits on the headboard, waiting patiently for me to turn it on and lull me to sleep. My husband rolls over and wraps me in his arms. "Are you going to turn your show on?" he asks. "Not yet. I'm not quite ready to sleep. You know, before I met you, I couldn't fall asleep with the sound of the television playing. Now, I can't fall asleep without it." I reach above me and press play, then I close my eyes and drift off with my future laying by my side. The Lantern Corridor by Marion Vosloo. Lanterns hung from every doorframe and windowsill down the street that led to the center of town. If you stand at the end of the street and look towards the center, it creates a spectacular picture of a corridor filled with color and warmth. This is the street that reminds me that the new year is almost here. It is the night when we come together to say goodbye and thank you to the year that is passing. The air is filled with excited chatter and smells that tickle the tongue with longing, as the townspeople are all slowly coming to the street to find a good spot and enjoy the stalls as they wait for the evening's ritual to welcome in the new year. It is a scene that helps a small smile creep to the lips and eyes to look on with warmth and affection. With every step towards my evening spot, my smile grows just a little bit bigger, and the bounce in my step gets a little bit higher. Grandmother always told me that we must be grateful that we are able to celebrate bringing in the new year. She would also always say that it is important to show our thanks for being able to live through the year and experience and learn so many things. We need to show thanks for the moments we were sad and frustrated, and the moments we were happy and excited, because we have experienced all these things. It shows that we are alive and that we were able to live through this last year. A deep chuckle drifts to my ears, and a conversation that I had with my grandmother earlier in the day comes to mind. It happened as I sat in a dark chair that is found in the corner of her living room. With her deep, raspy voice, she taught me something new about the old Year's Eve dance ritual, and it all started with a simple question. "Grandmother, why do we dance in the New Year's celebration?" "Well, my child, dancing can capture our emotions and express them in a way that others can feel it. The dance draws us in, and even though it is a single dancer that is dancing for all of us, they are a reflection of our emotions of the past year and our hope for the new one. All you need to do is take a closer look at how the dancer dances." How they dance. My tone must have been one of puzzlement as it made my grandmother chuckle with a deep laugh. "Yes," she chuckled. "Look at the way they dance and how their movements match the music, because every year the dance is different." "No, it's not. The dance is not different. It is the same dance ritual each year." With a rise of her eyebrow, she looked at me with mischievous eyes. "Are you sure about that? I have never seen the same dance each year." "But it is the same. They start at the same place. They dance the same steps and even wear the same costume each year." "But is the dancer the same child?" "No, there is a new dancer every year." "Exactly," she exclaimed with a clap of her hands. "Each year someone new is able to dance the old Year's Eve dance, and they bring their own style, abilities, experiences, and emotions. As they dance, they tell us their own story of the past year, And you can tell the difference?" I asked her skeptically. "If you pay attention, then yes, you can tell the difference." "Will I be able to tell the difference?" "With a little practice and concentration, you just need to start watching the dance with your own experiences of the past year in mind." I would not even know where to start with that. I pouted. "And that is why it takes practice. I don't know if my trick will work for you, but if you want to give it a try, I'll tell you what I do." "Oh yes, please, grandmother," I said excitedly. "Okay, so what I do is as the dancer starts to dance at the end of Lantern Street, I think about the start of my year, my dreams and hopes I had for that year. Then as they move down the street towards the town center, I think about all the ups, downs and adventures that I have gone through in the year." It sounded easy enough, but I still don't completely understand what grandmother was talking about. The one thing that I know is that the dancers are always beautiful. In just a few steps I will be at my special spot, which is a good thing because the street is becoming more crowded. Soon the whole town will be here as it is almost time for the Old Year's Eve dance. Just past one more street and up the building's side ladder and I will be ready for the evening. There is something truly special about a bird's eye view. I can see enough details of the dance and enjoy the overall picture of the story at the same time. The best part is that I can follow the dancer along the rooftop trail as the dance moves down Lantern Street, and if there is enough space I can even dance a few of the steps. Though mother would die of a heart attack if she ever knew. But this year I want to see what grandmother was talking about. If the dance is truly different, I can tell Lantern Street is just as beautiful from above as it is down below, warming and welcoming. As I look to the end of the street, I can see the dancer has arrived and is preparing for the start of the Old Year's Eve dance, and the crowd has started to quieten. This year the dancer is a girl not much older than me. I can see her fixing her costume and gathering her pose. She looks like a glittering white star as she stands there waiting in her flowing dancer's costume. She is the star amongst the dark night and the brightest light amongst the lanterns. She is still for a moment and the air went silent. Even the night animals held their breath in anticipation. A slow, low drumbeat starts to sound and a melody so warm and thankful starts to take form. Her movements match the beat as she dances the ritual steps. I did as my grandmother said. I start to think about the start of my year, my hopes and dreams. As I watch her dance, it seems as though her movements have a hint of happiness and excitement. As she moves down the street towards the town center, her dance slowed when the melody slowed, and her movements give a feeling of sadness and grief. When the melody gathers speed, so did her actions, and a joyous feeling of happiness comes through. As I watch her take each step, I can feel the moments of frustration, struggle, and strife, as well as determination, kindness, and love. It is as though her dance mirrors my emotions as I think about my journey through the year. I can see it. I can feel it. She is dancing my story. She is saying, "I understand. I have been through this journey, and with gratitude I made it." As gratitude fills my heart, the warmth I feel brings a pickle of tears to my eyes. Even though I am not on the street dancing with her, my heart is longing too. I can feel the itch in my body telling me to move to melody, to bend and curve and twist. The closer she gets to the center of town, the more the melody starts to pick up its beat and becomes a joyous tone. Taking its cue from the music, excitement starts to ripple through the crowd. Soon we will say our final thanks and farewell to the old year, and welcome in a new year with hope and happiness. As she gently places her foot onto the center square, the music stops and the crowd goes still in silence. With her head bent in thanks, she steps towards the fire pit. Slowly she spreads her arms towards the sky, and with a graceful motion she starts to twirl, creating a fluttering of material around her. The countdown is starting. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. She stops her twirls, and with a graceful deep bow and an air of thankfulness, she faces the crowd, and the fire roars into life behind her. The old year is over, and the new year is finally here. Lively music dances through the air as the crowd gathers in the street to join in the celebration. You can see the children running up to the small fire pits around the big fire. In their hands are the letters that contain their wishes for this year. As they throw them into the fire, you can see their dreams lifting into the night sky. I too will send my wishes with theirs. I can see everyone's joy, excitement, and love clasping hands and giving hugs. Grandmother is right. Each dance is different because each person is different. We all experience things differently and see the world through our own eyes and experiences. But we all understand grief, pain, and sadness. We know frustration, struggles, and strife, and we strive for peace, laughter, and happiness. I hope soon I will be able to share my dance with everyone, as I thank the old year for everything I have learned, and welcome in the new with hope and courage. Wafting Introspection by Eric Olson. There is a certain type of peace to be found at night, when one is outdoors with only the sounds of nature, while everyone else sleeps, recharging their bodies and minds for the coming day. I sit and try to find this peace, and I contemplate how the world all fits together. On such a night as described, I find myself initiating the familiar steps of my ritual. My steps are few and the work is easy, but I follow them to the letter. There is something ceremonious about doing a thing that one does often, exactly in the way that one always does it. My mother makes her coffee the same way, in the same order, every morning. I suppose these constants in life bring us comfort. The whole process really began some time ago, when a seed was fertilized in the womb of the earth. Its tendrils broke free, some snaking downward in search of nutrition, another straining upwards to glimpse the light of life. The warm rays of the sun imbued energy into this plant, and the moist soil beneath powered its growth. Eventually, it brought forth blooming, pungent flowers, and these flowers are now in my possession. My work begins by grinding them finely, but not before I take time to examine them. They truly are beautiful flowers, with their dark hues of green, sometimes flecked with purple, others with orange. The trichomes shine like a morning dew upon the grass. The resulting fluffy ground matter sticks to my fingers as I guide it carefully into its receptacle. This is where the process can undergo alterations. Whether the herb is cylindrically embraced in a combustible sheet, or fitted snugly into a glass percolator, the goal and results are inevitably the same. Now is when the ritual truly begins, everything preceding being mere preparation. A flame is needed, any match or lighter will do, and it all takes place outside. This is imperative. The endless height of the atmosphere is necessary. I don't enjoy the feeling of inhaling anything but pure air from said atmosphere, and I hold no delusions that anything but is healthy. Yet as the smoke passes my lips, I find myself breathing in deeply. I expel the cloud outwards and upwards. It wafts away into the night sky, and I close my eyes. I hear the faint laughter of others, neighbors out enjoying this night as well. I hear the crush of aluminum cans, the clink of glass bottles. They too are altering their consciousness. The only difference is that I am a criminal, and I am committing a criminal act. There is an illogical hypocrisy surrounding my culture's use of consciousness-altering substances. Historically and factually, I understand how our situation has reached this point, but it is by no means right or fair. We maintain certain contradictions that we just can't seem to come to terms with as unreasonable, as so they remain and they fester. This giggling, loosening, muddling elixir is just what you need. You deserve it. In fact, this herb, however, well, this herb is only for the immoral, reserved for the delinquents, for the streets. Now I realize the flame has gone out. Not to worry, fire is plentiful. It's the plant matter that is to be conserved. As the feelings set in, my eyes move from one star in the sky to the next. Individually, the chirping sounds of frogs and insects become an ambient symphony to my ears, and I take another draw. Who am I kidding? Really? By no means am I oppressed for doing this. The others simply view it differently, through a separate generational lens. I suppose the problem is that I am meant to respect these people, and to look to them for encouragement, and for validation. This is where my anxieties stem from, the disconnect that I find impossible to ignore. I don't like the word vice, either. I choose to do this. If there is a mode of existence in which the battle of life is fought empty-handed, I have yet to discover it. Perhaps that mode is attained by those who, in fact, do not see life as a battle, but instead as a dance. We are bound to take wrong steps. We may even tread on another's toes or have our own stepped upon. and the dance resumes. But what happens when a sword comes out and someone is stabbed? Can the dance ever resume? The blood is all over the floor. Everyone seems to be stepping in it. What if someone slips? Someone is bound to slip. I sometimes feel the sting of that sword on my own skin, and I don't even know who is wielding it. The hilt could be in my own hand. Perhaps it's not a dance, but a forward march. Should we all stand in line, in step with whoever is ahead and behind us? Whatever the case is, I don't feel like dancing, marching, or fighting, so I take another hit. The taste is of burnt sweetness, the texture thick on my tongue. Water is always to be kept at hand during the process. I reach for it and take a long sip. This is a step of the ritual rarely forgotten. Water is life, not fire. Though this fire can project dazzling light over the surface of the pond. At this point, I feel as though I'm being too bitter. Perhaps this conflict in my mind is just so all in my mind. Perhaps no one even cares enough for it to matter. But what a happy ending that would be. I fear many of us care too much, myself included, and that we all must pick a side. And yet it isn't about sides, is it? It can't be that black and white, can it? Sometimes I wish it was, but that would be too simple. There is nothing simple about this life. We can't even decide on the rules. How can we, when we have to make them ourselves? Who has the loudest voice, or the biggest stick? God would be a great help, if only he would make use of himself. I wish he would take control. Perhaps he has. I think these thoughts to myself as I take another hit, and I open my eyes to begin to look around at my surroundings. I have shelter. There are rooms inside this shelter filled with food and clean water. This is more than what many others have prayed for. What reason have I ever had to feel unhappy? I look away from my house and gaze back out towards the woods. I wonder about the insects and the frogs that provide the soundscape. Oh, they feel. Do they feel anything without the burden of conscious self-awareness? Alas, now the flame has gone out for the last time. Only ash remains, and the night is solely illuminated by the moon. I bury the ash, so the cycle of natural growth may continue, and then I go to bed, since my own cycle of natural growth must continue as well. This is when I realize I've been worrying about nothing because nothing makes sense, and now that makes all the sense in the world. With everything to worry about, there is simply no worry. When faced with such simplicity, how could we not make things complicated? This is where the comfort lies. I hope these introspections shed light into any sort of unilluminated place. But for now, my ritual has ended. Until I wake again tomorrow. The Cat by Kate Shaw. And that's how she lost her eye. Jimmy snuggles the cat closer in under his overly large plaid shirt. Threadbare jeans cover his legs. The older man laughs, his cackling turning into a dry cough towards the end. Jimmy grimaces, his hands run through the cat's fur from head to tail, his actions monotonous, familiar. The man looks at them again, shaking his head, a smile still twinkling on his ruddy face. You're a good boy, kid, get some sleep. Jimmy smiles back at him. It's thin, but it's real. The man shuffles off towards town. Jimmy knows he's got a bed in the shelter. A sweeping job in the morning. Jimmy watches the man's back until his silhouette turns the corner, then he lets his eyes slide closed. His mind's in a small room with a soft bed, a chair with a green blanket, and trucks strewn across the floor. Get into your pajamas, and you can have some milk before brushing your teeth. The blue pajamas are fluffy and soft. A gray bunny, long-legged and threadbare, is tucked in beside him. Then onto the stories. Pick one for tonight, and we'll do the other tomorrow. But I want both of them. His hands close tight around the books, their covers solid in his hands. What he wouldn't give to do his teeth on the regular, to wear soft blue pajamas, to hear just one story again. His eyes open. His hair is stringy and limp on his shoulders. He snuggles the praying cat closer. She doesn't have a name, not out here, at least. Maybe she did have one though, once. Put yourself to bed this time, Jimmy. Yeah, you're old enough now, kid. You don't need Mummy to coddle you anymore. You're too soft as it is. Everything changes, his grandma had said. He'd nodded sagely, but he hadn't realized then how fast things can change. How quickly things can disappear, leaving cavernous spaces. No more soft pajamas. No more stories. He didn't even have to do his teeth anymore. He gets himself ready now, chooses an oversized t-shirt. does his teeth if he wants to, reads as many stories as he liked. Just as long as he keeps the door closed, as long as he doesn't interfere. Later, he'd turn a podcast on, using the volume to block out the shouting. Under the overpass, the light drops fast and the cold sets in. The others have left looking for a corner or a doorstep or an open window. Jimmy stands, clutching the cat closer, making sure she doesn't slip. He likes the dusk. He likes the quiet. Cat secure, they start their walk across the car park. The flickering streetlights look like stars if you squint. Against the building, the pile of cardboard boxes is lit from above by the fluorescent grocery store sign. He drops the cat on the footpath. You walk from here, I carry the beds. A familiar refrain, still, it makes him smile. The cat meows but keeps up. Reaching the pile first, the cat sniffs at the garage door, then moves back, giving Jimmy room to pull a few flattened boxes free before rubbing her head against his ankle. Come on, let's get some bread from the tray around the other side. Maybe you'll see a mouse. A good dinner before bed will help you sleep. He drags the boxes with him, tucks the bread in under his shirt where the cat used to be. They trudge back across the car park in silence. The cat knows the way, her good eye trained on the horizon. As they reach the ramp leading to the walkway, a gull shrieks overhead. The cat blanches like always. Jimmy laughs like always. Hair on end, the cat shakes her body, does her aggrieved stomping dance before lifting her head again, continuing their well-worn path. The asphalt is smooth here. The pathway relatively new, built to take advantage of the riverside. In the daylight, bikes speed through, walkers bring dogs to sniff at the gardens and romp through the grass. The cat shivers, eyes alert for predators. No dogs out tonight though. They turn off just before the skate park. Despite the floodlights, the shallow concrete bowl is silent. It's too late to career across the bumps, too cold to hang out tonight. The others will find their way here later. Boxes of beer or casks of wine. Jimmy picks up their trash each morning. It's his rent for being allowed to stay. Left. Over the footbridge. The river low underneath them. High tides around 11 p.m. That's why the gulls are shrieking. Just a little further. The cat skids ahead, then turns back, waiting among the shrubs, knowing Jimmy takes longer. The large cardboard sheets are ungainly and hard to carry. One last corner and the underpass is back in sight. Jimmy smiles. The caw-thud, caw-thud, caw-thud overhead is a comforting tune. The strafing lights hypnotic against the darkening sky. Hang on, let me get right in against the wall. Jimmy shunts the cat back as he lays the cardboard down in the regular pattern. The large boxes are set 3 deep, covering the dirt. 2 small boxes for a pillow. He crawls against the concrete pillar. Its graffitied face is still warm from the day's sun. Behind him, the cat picks her way gingerly across the boxes until she reaches her usual spot under his chin. His hand sneaks around her, tucking his plaid shirt tight against her back. He shuffles a bit, finds a comfortable divot in the cardboard. Satisfied, he relaxes into the makeshift nest. The cat takes her turn, shuffling around, her claws tenderizing the cardboard or his chest. Whichever is within reach. Jimmy draws a rush of air in through clenched teeth. He shifts her down further into the warming hollow of his shirt, away from his bare skin. Her fur tickles his chin as he leans in. The moon climbs high in the glittering sky. The city's all asleep. His voice is soft, his hand returning to her fur, stroking a familiar rhythm. Under blankets warm and dry, the children safely keep. Children